Good evenings, Cape Flats Stories. Mense van die Kaapse vlakte of soos I say, Cape Flats International. Hope you guys are good. Hope het gaat goed saam met julle. I have a young lady in the studio tonight with me, and I've decided we're going to talk about business tonight. Just business, nothing else. I've seen how people are struggling with business, with their businesses, and this young lady, she is very much clued up, and she is a networker of notes. She knows how to network. She's got a mantra, before Barach, and I like that mantra actually. So she's going to tell you more about that. But with me in the studio, I have a lady, and I want you guys to follow her on all platforms. I promise you, you are going to benefit from the nuggets that she gives out. With me in the studio, I have Kennethea Jackson. She's not part of the Jackson family, but she is a Jackson.
Definitely.
Welcome to Cape Flats Stories.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. And, you know, it's just so amazing to just be in the studio here with you, and we can have a lacquer conversation.
No, definitely.
And yeah, kudos to you and all of your recent achievements and the health journey. We are watching. You leading and we following.
Thank you. You know, it's not easy, but we try.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Kenny, before we go into much detail and before we make them clever, I first want to know more about you. Wie is Kenny and van waar is Kenny? Because I just saw you a few years popping up, and I follow you ever since then. And I've learned so much from you. So, wie is Kenny? For ons wat nie jou ken nie.
Kenny is Kenny's second. So I come from generations of Kennys, generations of Kennethea Jacksons.
Okay.
They were the eldest of 5. I obviously came out of the mold, and then you know what our parents did back in the day. They just said, well, die pa se naam is Kenneth, die oupa se naam is Kenneth, she is Kennethea. And people would mess up the name a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why the nickname Kenny came in. But I am a mom of 2 feisty boys. Okay. I'm a wife, married for 16 years. Wow. And I am an entrepreneur. It's in my DNA and community. Yeah. And I think that's where Business Breakfast Club came about, is that my heart was always for giving back, facilitating. Yeah. And I truly just want, you know, to continue this platform of community and giving back. So Kenny is an extrovert out there, but in my house you won't hear me.
Introvert.
I think when I am at home I'm recharging. But yeah, just a humble girl from Mitchell's Plain, grew up in Westridge. Wow. And I knew from a young age that I would have to do a bit more, give a bit extra if I want to make a difference out there. So yeah, very proud to be from the Cape Flats, and I think there's so much goodness and greatness, and we are part of breaking the stigma and the mold.
Exactly. I like how you say it, part of the Cape Flats, amazing funny Cape Flats. We have so much limitations that we put there for ourselves. You know, you're not going to accomplish anything. But I think we just need to work a bit harder. You said that you are going to have to work a bit harder. You knew that from the start.
Yes.
I think so many times what we do is we make excuses. How do you get that out of your mindset, the excuse part? How did you work through that?
You know, like I said, I was the eldest of 5, grew up in Westridge, Mitchell's Plain. And I knew from a very young age. And when I was in grade, I think, you know, that time we called it standard 5, you know, when kids used to go on this annual camps at some dam, and parents would have to save and contribute a monthly. So I knew from the very beginning, when that opportunity came about, and you were in standard 5, you're looking forward to this camp. It happened in November. By October, my parents had not sent any money yet. So now you got the rest of your peers talking about the camp, the camping bag, the snacks, what they're going to do the weekend, and you're out of that conversation. You're not out of that conversation because you don't want to go. You're out of the conversation because your parents is not at the financial means to let you be part of the synergy. And in standard 5, I remember the bus pulling away. Everybody else, all my friends in the bus, parting away. I can still envision the smoke. I was standing there waving at the bus. And even at 12 years old, I knew that if my parents don't have money to send me on the camp, my parents might not have money to send me to this thing called university. And so I knew in high school, every decision that I was going to make was to steer me in the direction of success. And to me, success was I wanted a job, I wanted to be independent, and also I think that time we all wanted jobs to help the parents,
Exactly.
help the household. You were getting your wages. My first job, I'm not sure if you remember, there was a fisheries in town center called Makis.
Yes,
Oh
yes,
my
yeah.
gosh. I remember coming from high school,
Yeah.
and getting home, doing my thing, and I earned 25 rand a weekend.
Wow.
But my mom took the 20 bucks, I took the 5 rand, but I was able to do something with it. So I think it's all about choices. We can choose to be a victim, or we can choose to make an impact and just work a little bit harder.
Yeah. And Kenny, so many years later, so you have now worked hard, you kept yourself. I mean, we all had challenges. We all could have given up.
Absolutely.
What happened when you finished school? What was your goals? What did you want to become? Did you become it? Did you go and study? More about that part of your life.
So going through high school, I get to high school, and obviously I have ambitions, I've got goals, and my parents wasn't part of that conversation, because remember, we were 5 kids, there's another 4 after me. Life was about surviving at the time. And so I knew very early on that I would have to make friends with people that knew how to fill in application forms and so forth. Luckily for me, I got a bursary and I became a teacher.
Wow, you were
I was a teacher in primary school, and I lasted 1 year. After 1 week, I was like, where do I resign? Take out my womb? Who are these aliens? It was a whole day, ma'am. And I was like, I'm so done.
Yeah.
But I knew that I loved teaching and facilitating. And so I applied wherever you could find a bursary.
Okay.
I ended up at Cape Tech, we called it back then.
Okay.
Finished my business degree there.
Nice.
After that, I knew that having a business degree was not enough, and I wanted to go into IT. So I became an IT lecturer for many, many years.
Okay.
And let me tell you, wherever I was, and I would like to encourage the youth out there, never stop applying. Before Barach, and I think
There's
that
the
is
word, before Barach, there's the word.
the only way that I got through 3 tertiary education diplomas was because I was for Barach. I was knocking in the doors, and if they didn't hear the knock, I would brown belt and black belt kick the door in. Until today, that has been part of my persona. I encourage many entrepreneurs to have that little bit of guts and just apply. So facilitation has always been in my genes, and I knew that I wanted to make an impact. And so all the years of lecturing, I wanted to teach adults. I wanted to teach anybody where I didn't have to wipe their nose. And I think that's where BBC came about, is that I wanted to give back, and I knew I had this education and experience, and so that was the birth of BBC.
So, Kenny now grew up in Mitchells-Plain, meisie van die Kaapse vlakte. And then she went to go work at the fisheries, daar in die town center in. No? Okay, Makkies. Okay.
Started there.
And then she was for Barach, and she went to go study for a teacher. And she wasn't long there, but she knew she wanted to go into teaching and learning and development, obviously. And then later on, she went to go study business. And now Kenny, many years later, Kenny started a organization called BBC, Business Breakfast Club. And that vehicle is doing so well. Tell us more about that vehicle.
Wow, Business Breakfast Club, I had a full-time job, happy, cozy, and I can't even say that BBC was a leap of faith. It was something that I did as a sideline. I have 2 other businesses that I run, but I always found myself in a position where my WhatsApp was just filled with messages. Kenny, do you know? ... Do you know somebody that can fix this problem? I was always exposed to entrepreneurs. I remember way back in matric, the only way that I knew I was going to afford my matric dance dress. I was every Sunday at Musenberg Flea Market, setting up the gazebo, selling my beads and earning money. And I knew that entrepreneurs have got all these challenges, a kopsiere, I would say. But for every headache, there's a Bernardo, there's a
Exactly.
solution.
Yes.
And so the very first BBC was really just a coffee date.
Okay.
All these people that were nagging me, Kenny, do you know of somebody that can
Yeah.
do a website?
Yeah.
Kenny, do you know of anybody that does social media? And so I think I got tired of connecting the dots. And I was like, okay, all the people with problems
Come
and
to
all
me.
the people with solutions, let's have a coffee. That very first BBC turned out into a 4-hour coffee date.
Wow.
The results of that first coffee date, now, mind you, I took the day off to arrange and solve these
Everything.
people's problems. And I honestly thought it's going to be a once-off.
Okay.
As a result of that first meeting, people were able to then have their own coffee dates afterwards. So I found that the ripple effect of this gathering had its own flow. All of a sudden, people could collab with each other. People were finding solutions. People were meeting people that could either be their customer or a service provider. And then somebody said, well, Kenny, when are we doing this again? I'm like, what do you mean? I took a day's leave to arrange all of this. The next BBC, I don't even think we called it BBC in 2019. So our first BBC was 20 odd people, entrepreneurs, and the next one was about 46.
Wow.
The third one turned into 60 people, and 6 months later, I was like, I'm done lecturing, I'm retiring, and fixing people's problems and helping entrepreneurs is going to be the full-time gig. And that's how it really started.
Wow. It wasn't an easy journey giving up your job. And, that is the one thing that stops many people from starting a business. I can walk away today, but doesn't guarantee that I will have a salary. How do you determine that? Because I think that is the many people have this question, when do I know when to walk away and when do I start my business?
So I think in the very beginning, and I think for many of us, when we enter the journey of being an entrepreneur, or when you go into collaboration with somebody, I think the one thing that we all agree on is that there's so much excitement. So our emotions steer this whole path. Will you believe in the first 2 years of BBC, it was free. It was absolutely free, but I gave up my career to do this thing because I wanted so many people to buy into this concept. It is only after COVID, when I restarted BBC, I decided, well, okay, how and what decisions do I need to make? Where Kenny doesn't pay the bills of BBC. BBC has to pay the bills of BBC. And I thought, well, I'm going to have these events. This is my ideas. I'm going to have memberships, but people are going to have to pay. And it's only in year 3, we're now going into our 6th year.
Wow.
It's only in year 3 that I realized. And when you come to this realization, entrepreneurs, you are going to lose friends. You're going to lose people. The day you decide that I have to value my value. It's going to be a game changer and a shock for many. Because the day that I decided, well, I've got value. People are coming to my events. They're connecting. They're finding business. They're finding collaboration. There's a value prospect to this. And mind you, I did lose many people because now all of a sudden, well, she's been so good to us. She's been doing it free all the time. What they didn't know was the struggle behind the scenes. I would have some of my best events and I'd be stressing after the event. How am I going to pay the lady that made the courses? How am I going to pay the coffee service provider? So I was so obsessed with everybody liking my business and liking what I was doing. It blinded me to the expenses and the costs. But the day that I decided to value my value and know that BBC's got potential and whoever's going to come along is meant to be, and whoever you're going to lose along the way, that's also okay. Not an easy decision though. Yeah.
Kenny, but that's one of the things you spoke about, value. And I think in our community, we want things for free. That is the biggest challenge. My broer sê, "Hy het nie vir dit man, jy moet discount kry." But we are going to pay the bigger guys the money. We're going to pay those people that, will say the same things as we will say. We're going to pay them the thousands of rands.
Right.
And we still have a long way to go. Because, we're not really tapping into. We are here. We are from the Cape Coast. We want to inspire our people. We want to help our people. But we also need to realize, like you said, if you don't charge, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't have a value, people are going to give you a value, and sometimes a value is zero. How do we tell our people that what we're doing is important? And in order for us to continue doing this, we need them to buy into it. I think it's buying into a brand. And I think that is the biggest thing. We don't know what it is to buy into a brand. We just know we want a discount.
Absolutely. And I think that mentality, it's going to take a while for a lot of mindsets to change. I always believe that, and I think this is the mistake that many entrepreneurs make, is that they got to the point where they realize their value. There's a rand value attached to that value. And then they're doing their thing on social media, they're marketing, they're putting it out there. And when the response is low and they're getting all that negative feedback, the first thing that entrepreneurs do is they give the discounts. They lower the rand value, and automatically they're not lowering the value. The offer is still big, but the rand value comes down. And for me, I love using the example of, and I tell entrepreneurs this, that when you are putting your brand out there, it's like being in front of a pond and you're fishing, right? And so you're fishing, you're throwing out your cast and you're waiting for something to bite. When nothing bites, we are throwing in whatever was on your bait line. We are increasing the value on that bait line, and we're hoping to attract more fish. The problem is that you are fishing in the wrong pond.
Thank you.
You're fishing in the wrong pond. And the moment that you pack up your equipment and all your tools and you find the right pond, you're going to find that you're going to get people that's going to see your value. You don't have to put so much effort into it. But for many of us, especially from the Cape Flats, I think today, if you look at, the creative artists out there, the comedians and so forth, if you're looking at what our community is getting paid, it doesn't come close to what they deserve.
Yes. And I think we are to blame for that, because, like I said earlier, we want to give people a value. We don't want to pay people what they're worth. You mentioned about collaboration. That is the one thing that I'm afraid of. I've moved away from collaboration because, in many cases, and you will know this, you will give somebody an idea. Okay, this is what we can potentially build, me and you. And then sometimes you get excited. Dan gee jy die hele skrif gee jy weg. En dan kom jy môre op social media of 3 weke later. Like, I know you started this thing with the masterclass. And then a few weeks later say, hey, maar eat die masterclass. People tend to steal your ideas. And that is something we need to talk about. How do we copyright? Bly ons liewe stil eers, we rather keep quiet until it's done. Because you know what? People steal our ideas because they're looking for content.
Right. And we come from a culture, or at least I used to promote this culture, and I think part of my heart is still with that, but I loved using the hashtag collaboration over competition, community and collaboration. But I think in the last year, I've just seen so many examples, and I've experienced it myself. Now, I have to first of all say that none of us have reinvented the wheel. Networking, BBC is a networking platform. Networking has been around for many, many generations and decades. But we all have our unique twist on it. For me, I have been offered so many times by the big corporates where they want to buy the BBC concept because it's obviously it attracts people, there's a momentum, and some organizations struggle to get people into a room. After 5 years of doing this, that is one of my strengths, is to get people in a room. So the concepts and so forth might be original. I've had coffee with people where we were doing exactly this and talking about collaboration. And in the first 3 years of BBC, would you believe me, I would probably go on 20 coffee dates a week.
Okay.
My Vida Cafe bill was, hey, let me tell you, it was working overtime. But I was just so overwhelmed with excitement, and I wanted everybody's buy-in, and I almost had to sell my soul to the devil almost a few times for them to see my value. Like I said, after year 3, And even today, my idea of collaboration, I'm very careful. And I would encourage other people, especially, if you have a product, you can put it on the table.
Correct.
People can see, people can touch.
Yeah.
It's a commodity.
Yeah.
But when your talent, when your gem, when your asset is a skill, it's a skill. Then it becomes a little bit dodgy. And I've experienced a few times this year where people would take your idea, run with it. You'll see it on social media, and it's like, it stings, it hurts. But we also have to, like I said, we've got to value our own value, and we've got to be careful with who we're sharing.
Exactly.
And I think that when you are in a meeting or you're on the verge of collaborating, I think it is so vital that you get the A, B, and C's first in order. So what do I mean by that? I mean that, for many of us, when we are stung and you're burned, when you've invested time, energy, resources, intellectual property, by the time you realize they've stolen from you, the easiest thing for us to do is walk away.
Always.
We always walk away. There's nothing to show for it. And so, recently I even did a workshop where we had an attorney. And he says, do you know, to get an agreement in place, it would cost you like X. I was surprised at the X because it actually wasn't that big amount.
Okay.
I would encourage entrepreneurs that before you go into collaboration, whether it is with a content creator, whether it is with another entrepreneur, whether it is with a corporate, it's to have that non-disclosures in place. It means that if you do X, Y, and Z, I can still walk away with my information, my resources. That is still intact. Are we doing it? Are we getting burnt?
Lots of times.
So we've got to be doing something different going forward. We have to be careful when it comes to collaborations.
And like you said not yourself, you went to your study, you were working, so when you work in companies and you collaborate with people over the years, you build a pond or a lot of knowledge. And that's the knowledge that people steal from you. So aside from them going out to go and gain the knowledge, you have it, and that's what they walk away with. So this is what I want to ask you. Let's say we have a business out there that wants to collaborate. And we're not saying people mustn't collaborate. I think we must just look at our interests. Should the first thing be that they should go see a lawyer and draw up a contract? Because at the end of the day, if you might sit on something like you said, like what Cape Flip Stories, there's so many companies that wants to buy this, so many people that wants to buy this brand. It might look like a name, but you know what it is to build the brand.
Absolutely.
How do we protect our brands? Because sometimes you have a brand, people come in, they work with you for 5 or 6 years, they pretend to work with you, they steal everything. The moment they walk away with your stuff, they walk away with your ideas, and when they leave, you basically sit with a skeleton.
It is so sad, but it's a reality that happens every day. My best advice would be, any entrepreneur, if I would like to improve the marketing of my business, I don't have the funds, and so on, I'm going to find out how to use Canva. I'm putting all this research and time to learn this tool so that I could be better at social media or marketing. If you are, but I think the legal aspect for entrepreneurs, that is, I think, last on the list. For me, if you have a skill, and especially if you have a following, I think you need to, and for many of us, we think, well, I'm not going to get the letter to put up this agreement. It's going to cost me too much. But you got to ask yourself, are you prepared to ride it out and, encounter the legal penalties at the end? So do you run to the lawyer when the house is on fire? Or do you go already up front and say, I'm going to get my fire extinguishers and getting legal advice? If you find that you're an entrepreneur and you can't afford an attorney, if you have a following and you're good at content, barter is such an important skill. Trade exchange, there's nothing wrong with approaching an attorney, a lawyer, and saying, can you draft this document for me in exchange? You're not asking for free. You don't want free. But many of us have to still brush up on the legal stuff.
And I think that's the thing. The other question that I want to ask you, many of our people, let's say they have a skill. The antik and kwai ecosystem. So it's kwai medai. But it's always the same people buying from her. She has the ability to go national, to go all over Cape Town. How do we encourage her? Let's say some Kwaiko sisters, but you want the world to know about her. So you are brilliant with networking. That is your expertise. I've also learned how to do a little bit of it. But how do we tell Auntie Fatima, you're going to have to get out of yourself. And you're going to have to start networking. And you're going to have to, nowadays we have AI. AI is a game changer. And I know many people don't like it.
Yeah.
But for Auntie Fatima, you want to help her grow the business from selling to the streets people to the rest of Cape Town.
Oh, that Tanny that makes the sisters might never come out of her shell. She might never be, I'm that girl. And it might never happen. And the reason I'm going to share a story with you of how that voorbarige story came out and why I still find doing BBC such a passion of mine, because I want to avoid an experience the way I went through. I was, even before BBC, being an entrepreneur, I used to go to networking events. And I was at an event and the MC was trying to encourage the audience to get out of their shell. At that time, I was contemplating, what should I say? May I stand up? And he presented the opportunity and said, does anybody want to introduce their brands? I was sitting there and I was thinking, in my mind, I had a little bubble. And I know when people come to my events, they're sitting with that same fear.
Yes.
Should I? So I come up with networking games to get the introverts out of their shell. But many years ago, about just over 6 years ago, I was at an event. I had the opportunity to just create exposure and say who I am and what I do. And I nudged the Tanny next to me and I said, I'm going to stand up. But in my own mind, I was thinking, keep quiet. Sit down, don't go up. I was having the conversation with myself. And it was like, Kenny, just get up and then introduce your brand. But you got that doubt, that fear. It's like, just relax and just enjoy the event. And I said to the lady next to me, and I said, I think I'm going to stand up. I think I'm going to introduce myself. She nudged me back. And she says, moenie voorbarig wees nie. Now, ask me, when I left that event, did I eventually use the opportunity?
Did you?
No, I cried on my way home. I was like, I should have gotten up. Months later, I bumped into some people that was at that event. They turned out to be my future clients.
Wow.
But I wasted 6 months. I didn't use that opportunity because somebody
told
me to be quiet. And so that is really the birth of the word #B4barig. Is that I want to encourage people when you go to these networking events. And that Tanny that makes the sisters, she might not be a natural extrovert. And BBC is not a place for the elite only. It is not a place for the startups. It's for everybody. And even for the Tanny that makes sisters, there is a place for her. Absolutely.
Awesome. And you see, you mentioned something now. So you need to be innovative. When you have a business, you need to be innovative. There's always going to be somebody that's going to have a better idea than you. And it's always going to be competition. So when I sell sisters, somebody on the next route might also sell the same type of sisters. But I need to come up, I always need to be one step ahead. Okay, jy gee sister, ek gee sister met 'n koffie. I'm going to give it for maybe R2 more, but you are going to save. How do we tell our people? Because, also means I did something once last year and I saw it as an opportunity. And somebody said to me, but you're an opportunist. I'm not an opportunist. I saw it as an opportunity because I looked at it as how can I grow my business? Because there's a different, I didn't steal anybody's ideas. I just saw something happening at the time. And I saw that this is a way for, when you go and surf, because when you surf, but when you go and surf, you get on a surfboard and you wait for the perfect wave. And it was that time for my business. And the business did very well. However, somebody said afterwards, you are an opportunist. How do you tell people that if you are looking for opportunity, you are going to become an opportunist? Because I think we need to be innovative, but also, how do we also know that we need to, like I say, you're always going to have to improve your business. You're always going to look for better ideas. How do you stay ahead of things?
I think that's the challenge of being an entrepreneur is that you always want to trend set, I would say. But in a market where almost everybody, because remember, there are some entrepreneurs that are doing this gig full time. Then you have full-time employees like someone next to me that maybe has this that's got the side hustles.
Yeah,
so your full-time entrepreneurs are competing with the side hustles, but you've got to think about what makes you unique. And sometimes your own way, your own personality, that is what makes you different. The problem is when we are looking at our competitors and we're trying to be them. And that's not the way to go. I knew from the very beginning that having a networking club, there are other networking clubs that I would be competing with. I stepped into this, into this game where it was for the elite. It was only happening in certain circles. And I was thinking, well, I wanted my hashtag to be hashtag Be for Bara. But I found in the beginning people frowned upon that. But I had to make a decision. This is my signature. When you come to my events, this is what you're going to expect. You are going to have a laugh. We want to have fun. We want to keep it lighthearted. And if it's for you, it's for you. And if it's not for you, and that's also okay. But I think many entrepreneurs, we need to stick to being original. And you got to accept that the way that you are doing things, there's a market for that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I think being unique is one of the main things. Is like you tend to think out of the box, but you also come up with different initiatives where everybody's going to do the same thing. You're going to do something different. But Kenny, where do you see BBC? I mean, this baby has grown. This is not a baby anymore. If I look at the people that join,
55-year-old.
Man, I would even say a teenager already.
I know.
If I look at this baby of yours, you put in a lot of effort. You went through a lot of heartaches, people stealing ideas, stealing your people, all those type of things. What kept you grounded? And because of whatever kept you grounded, you obviously saw something in this baby of yours. And how are you going to maintain this? And where do you see yourself in the next 15 years? I don't want to say 5 years, but let's say 15 years.
Yeah. I think, when we started out BBC, I always love every now and then sharing the story behind BBC, just to encourage people that, BBC started out as a hobby for me, and that even if you have a side hustle that is a hobby right now, it can turn into a full-fledged business. But along the way, when I realized the value of BBC, I knew, and, it's like having an eagle's overview of a community of entrepreneurs. You get to hear the incredible stories of success and how they've grown through the network, but you also get to hear the struggling challenges by entrepreneurs, and I think that is what keeps me going. Today, Business Breakfast Club, we host 2 to 3 events a month. It's always fully booked. So that little baby has turned into a feisty 5-year-old. And the reason why I say feisty, I mean it in a good way, that now after 5 years, I've been burnt. I've been, collaborations have gone really wrong. I know what it is to have the highest expectations and be completely disappointed. So now I handle my decisions going forward. I would have to meet 10 times with you before I say we're going to collaborate. I will also check out, what do people, do they want to join or do they want to take? And I think, being a child of God as well, that has helped me, in my decision making, that you want to use your spirit of discernment. And sometimes you think you're doing all the right things, but then you're still experiencing the ugly side of collaboration. For me, I would love to see BBC go national. I would love to take what we've built up in Cape Town and take it to the other provinces. And I do know that there is a Business Breakfast Club in other countries. And over the last few weeks, I've had some conversations with other founders in England, in California. And I don't see anything stopping us from entrepreneurs in the mother city having conversations. And who knows, some of the products in the mother city has got so much export potential. I am so blessed to be in a space, and I'm sure you come across entrepreneurs all the time that are so talented, so skilled. All that people want is open doors.
Yes.
And that's where I see BBC growing. It's just opening up more doors for entrepreneurs.
Kenny, I saw quite a lot of people talking at your events. Groot name, lekker names. and one of the things that I want to ask you, you obviously had a lot of events, but there's obviously one event that is standing out for you. Maybe a story where you met someone or you helped someone. What is that one thing about your event that actually keeps you grounded and keeps you going?
You know, in the beginning, when I think in the first year, let me tell you, Stan, that in the first year, I knocked on so many doors, and people wanted to know, well, okay, fine, is amazing, Mitchell, explain, you got this big, bright ideas, what's your budget, where's your team?
Yeah.
I didn't have any of those things in place except a desire. I saw a gap, I saw an opportunity. And I wanted to have a platform where people could gather, right? And it's so interesting that the very doors that I knocked on in the very beginning when I was birthing this idea of BBC, and you know, Stan, that when you are birthing a concept, an idea, there's very few that is with you through the growing pains. It's and many people, I encountered so much rejection and so many no's. I've lost track of that.
Yeah.
Those very same people that said no is the very same people that is pounding down my door to speak at my events. So I think the list of speakers and the caliber of speakers has become a little bit easier. You don't have to do this whole long proposal and convince them. And I think when people see your value, and it's unfortunate, and just because everybody's knocking on your door doesn't mean you got to open all those doors.
No.
And I think some people, when they see a brand is now established, there's momentum.
Yes.
Don't even talk about the followers. They want to come on board.
Hey, tell me about it.
That is when we've got to say, hold up, walking, I've got this platform. We had this conversation a couple of years ago, and it was complete no. That's when they've got to start putting money on the table now for that value. But we are so naive and I don't know what is the word, but we just lose our minds when a corporate or political party entity come on board. We forget what we went through, and they weren't standing with you.
You're on your own.
You are on your own, but now this baby, this package looks so cute and fuzzy, and it's like, oh, can we also hold the baby? You got to be careful who's holding the baby.
Yes. And it's so true what you're saying. But this is my question, just to slot onto what you were saying now. In some cases, people want to see first also what you do, because in many cases, people came up with concepts and they invested, and the people just disappeared. But I mean, in your case, you have proven yourself. I sometimes feel that, you know what, yes, you should give me opportunity to prove myself, but I wanted you to walk this journey with me. In many cases, when these people come back to me 6 years, 7 years later, I tell them, no, I don't want to do business with you. Even though I need the business, but I'm going to walk away just to show you.
Right.
So,
Snobbish, but I think there's also a learning experience in that. You can walk away, absolutely, but I think as we are growing our brands, it's very, very important. And I've learned this because when the people are approaching you, they obviously see potential in what you're doing. For them, they want to get something out of it. But when we're talking with the corporates and the bigger guns that's got the finances behind them, for them, it's all about ROI, return on investment. It's all about the stats. And I would encourage people that are growing their brands. Like for me, I would say, I'm able to say in 2024, we had over 60,000 people at our BBC event. There's a value attached to that stat. And I think for many brands, you got to keep control over your stats. So when you come across these opportunities with a collabing, when you're putting a rand value to your brand, the stats are speaking for itself. So it's not about it. You take emotions out of it. And they have the opportunity or the choice to collab with you or not. But we've got to start taking ourselves a bit more serious.
Thank you so much. We must. We are not. You know what? You get people with brilliant ideas, brilliant concepts, with brilliant businesses, but we're not really taking ourselves serious. I mean, Many people will write on Facebook, government don't want to help us, or this one don't want to help us. But then you ask them, are you registered? Do you have a bank account? They're not compliant.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the one thing that I've picked up because I did a few workshops a few years ago. Many of our people's businesses is not compliant. In order for anybody to give you also money, they need to show what have you been doing with it. If you didn't make money, you at least need to show, okay, for the 50 rand that I made last month, I made another 50 rand.
Right.
How do we encourage our people to become compliant? Because we have good mechanics. In Mitchell's Plain, in Nova Park, Bondeville, wherever, brilliant mechanics. I don't need a business account. I don't need to register it. That is just for money. But what you don't understand is that later on, that piece of paper can open so many doors for you.
Absolutely. Every year I go to the Minister of Business Development and I sit in the seminar. And it is so dreadful when you hear the stats and to hear that 2.5 million, 1.8 million was rolled over to the next year because it wasn't accessed. The funds just roll over to the next financial year because entrepreneurs was not making use of these funds, the grants available. And it's about time that entrepreneurs, we stop sort of having the pity party and having that victim syndrome. And I think my blood turns purple when I still hear entrepreneurs blaming apartheid. There is opportunities out there, but you've also got to become compliant. And I think through BBC, we've always tried to have a culture of inviting the people who can assist you to become compliant. However, it is not something people are taking advantage of, so they are left behind. It's still a struggle, and I think people should, if you are foreseeing a different business in 5 years' time, if you are full-time employed and you got a side hustle, what are you doing? If your dream is to have your side hustle as a full-time hustle, I mean, you've got over 600,000, like a gazillion followers. You have a full-time job, and that says a lot that there's obviously a factor where you have not said, cheers, adios, I quit, and I'm just going to go and do my side hustles.
You're putting me on the spot now.
I am.
But I think it's a very valuable question that you're asking. I did get the opportunity. I won't lie to you. There was opportunities on a regular basis.
Okay.
But the field that they want me to go in is not the field that I want to go into.
Okay.
Not yet. However, this started out for me as a vehicle to be a voice for our people. And we've fought many fights here on this platform. If it's type something, if it was a podcast, if I said something, it was to be a voice, However, I have a little business on the side that's doing very well. I might I might quit my job in the near future. But
Are you listening?
I will just disappear and nobody will like see me. But it's not something that, I'm not comfortable, because remember also we've been taught, you get yourself a job and you work for 30, 40 years for a boss. That mindset is still there. Like you said, I started working at the age of 10 years old. I've always worked. There wasn't one time when I didn't work. If I wanted a pair of tekkies, I would go work for a pair of tekkies.
Right.
I wanted a jacket, I would do. I had that mindset. So I think also that conditioning over the years, I have the job that I wanted. But now I also don't want to give it up because I'm in a comfort zone.
You're comfortable.
That's the other thing. How do we also encourage our young people? Because I told my daughter, yes, you can go work for a boss for a few years. But once you have your experience, you need to start your own thing. That's where we're putting you in. How do I set an example for her? Because she's looking at what I'm doing.
Yes. And just so way off the topic, your daughter is amazing.
Thank you.
Saw a recent interview with her. Such a confident, beautiful woman. So well done on a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Maybe she'll take over the show one day. Who knows?
She tried the other night here on the show to take over. And I think she will do a good job. And that is why I say I will disappear. Nobody will see me ever again. And then she can take over.
I would love to invite you, because over the 2 years ago, Business Breakfast Club, we started BBC Kids Club.
Okay.
And every school holidays, we have a program, a market, an event where we try to instill the skills of entrepreneurship, a pizza date, a big walk, something where we bring the kids together and they are able to see these are entrepreneurs that are working at their businesses, and I'm very passionate about the BBC Kids Club, especially for our boy kids.
Yeah.
I think there's so much focus on female entrepreneurship. I mean, women, we've got a whole month,
Yeah.
Women's Month. But I think the youth, especially our boys, they need a lot of mentors. They need a lot of examples.
love
They need to be able to see that this is Uncle Stan and this is what he does. They need to see the Kurt Skoenraad's,
Yes.
all these amazing individuals that come out of the Cape Flats. They come from Mitchell's Plain.
Yes.
So BBC Kids Club is very driven around that. It's free to all our kids between 6 and 16.
Okay.
And so your daughter, I think she'll be president of BBC Kids Club. She'll be amazing. Can we invite her? Can we have her join?
Definitely. You know what? My son is very much, he's got the money making side. He knows how to. So the year before last, I gave him money, him and a friend, and they went to go buy sweets. And they went to go knock on every door in the neighborhood and they sold the sweets. So I paid for the sweets and they didn't pay me back. So he realized, but from the sweets, he made that day 200 Rand.
Wow.
Okay, the sweets cost about, it was like a 130. So they made like
It's a profit.
Profit, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he liked the concept and he started buying perfume, selling perfume and stuff. And I'm like, bruh, I'm not going to teach you the stuff anymore. So he's the one but the thing is this, he makes the money and he spends the money. That is the other thing. Now my daughter again, she don't give out money. She takes her money and she keeps the money. But I think it's good that we're talking about this because I think, like coming back to what we said earlier on, we didn't know our value because we weren't taught our value.
Right.
But in our case now, we have the opportunity to teach our children and other young people.
Absolutely. I remember getting pocket money on a Friday evening, and the first thing that we do, I think we each one got a 5 Rand coin.
Yeah.
I remember that. Not even the coin, it was the note.
It's the paper, yeah.
We used to get that, and I used to feel for a few seconds, I was like the richest girl in the whole wide world. But we would run immediately to the tuck shop. And you could spend that 5 Rand on whatever snacks.
Yeah.
And some of our kids, we still gotta still teach them those skills.
Yeah. And it's important for us to teach them that skills because at the end of the day, like I say, let's say you get a job, you earn 30,000 Rand a month. But the company makes from you 300,000 Rand a month, giving you only 10%. And I think also with us now, we can teach that to our children. You have the skill. If you can work a boss rich, you can work yourself rich. I think apart from the mental conditioning that we've been conditioning, like, I don't know if it was in your family also, so you have to help everyone. And that is a nonsense culture. You mustn't help everyone. Yes, you can help them now and then, but you need to charge them also. I mean, you have people that is brilliant at mathematics. You help for that kind of mathematics.
Yes.
But you're not giving a person money. I mean, what we also need to understand, time is a commodity.
Absolutely.
Time, if you put in time, you might not give money, but you're giving time. Time is also money. And I think it's all things like that we need to address and teach our kids. When you give your time, you need to charge for your time.
Absolutely.
Kenny, we've come out to the episode lekker gepraat and so on, but I want you to speak to our audience tonight. Small businesses especially is struggling. I want you to leave them with some nuggets and some hope. Because I think small businesses has the power to employ so many people, but I think we doubt ourselves, especially on the Cape Flats. What would your word of encouragement be to small businesses on the Cape Flats?
Yeah, I think it's important that if you are still, you have a full-time job and you want to get into the world of entrepreneurship, my biggest advice is that you do your research really well. Be very careful before you take that leap of faith. It is a nice story to say that I'm taking this leap of faith and want to become an entrepreneur, but really get your ducks in a row. And if you are an entrepreneur out there, it's important to surround yourself know who your tribe is.
Yeah.
Get into the amazing skill of bartering. Even if you can't afford things, use your skills to negotiate trade exchanges, and that will get you ahead of the game. And yes, we do agree that collaboration over competition, but I would strongly, highly recommend that all entrepreneurs that you get yourself, just go read up on just the legal aspects before you enter agreement. Our brand is it's a personal thing. We throw our heart and souls into our businesses, and there's no trading working hours. Some of us, we work through the night, and don't just give your skills away. Don't give your power away. Value your value, and always remember that just having a little bit of that voorbarigheid is going to get you further in life.
Kenny, thank you so much for joining me tonight and for giving that words of advice. But also one last thing, how can they follow you in your next event? When is your next event? Because I want them to come and book a seat, listen to you, because then you are Kenny. Yeah, you're a bit limited. But when you're in your space, you are not limited. How can they follow you? How can they get to your events and things?
On a personal note, you can go on Facebook and you can just look for Kennethea Jackson Williams, but you can also look for Business Breakfast Club on all our social medias. Kenny Boss Lady on TikTok. I share some silly advice about my trials and tribulations, but you can go on Instagram on Business Breakfast Club. And in May, we've got such an exciting lineup. We're having a sign language workshop for entrepreneurs. We want entrepreneurs to be able to speak to customers that is hard of hearing. And so you need to be able to, if you have a deaf customer in front of you, you are able to greet them, acknowledge them, and service them. And then we've got some amazing networking skills workshops coming up. We are also doing a brainstorming with Kenny. I think from next month onward, I'll be doing once a month just for entrepreneurs to pick our brains for 3 hours. So lots of amazing events coming up, and they can check it out on our Business Breakfast Club Instagram.
Ladies and gentlemen, please follow Kenny. Please go check her out. If you're a small business struggling, I promise you, it's worth investing in going to go see her, or attending one of her events. When you walk away from it, I was there also at a few, but when you walk away from it, you walk away with so much knowledge, but also knowledge, it's a networking device that is working, and you won't believe there's sometimes people there at the event that can open doors for you. So please do go and check out, and do go and support one of her events. I promise you, you are not going to regret it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and let's do business. Cheers.